I think, again, going back kind of roundabout to where we were before about like how you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. It's the same thing with teaching. Like I can give you all the tools and everything that you need to, but you at the end of the day have to do the work. I cannot do the work for you. And it's the same thing with therapy. It's the same thing of like growing and going through life. Like you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't use them, you're not going to get very far. And so I do find that helps me a lot with teaching too, because I'm understanding it in like two different ways. And I'm very conscious about mental health in my teaching and my business as well. So like mental health is something that like I touch on all the time. And when I see students get overwhelmed and burnt out, I try to do what I can to help that. Or when they need to take the time, like it's everyone's got something right going on, and I do try
that. You're compassionate boss, compassionate leader.
Good try.
Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist podcast, a place where we dive deep into all things relationships. I'm Dana Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger, and we are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists who are on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Each week, we will discuss our expertise in the field of psychology, interview experts, spiritual leaders, and real people. Our goal in every episode is to give our listeners tools to implement in their lives today.
This podcast is not therapy, nor should it be a substitute for therapy, but instead we're here to motivate, support, and guide your conscious journey in this life.
The best way to support our podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
Thanks so much for joining. Let's dive in.
So Danny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super happy. Oh, look, he's just going to look on you and love on you. Grateful that you're here.
Yeah.
And hoping that, we can people can learn from you and your experience and your business and your entrepreneurship and your like busy brain and all the things. And we'll just chat about whatever, and dog loving, of course.
Yep. I'm getting all the dog loving.
Right? Yeah. So you hear dogs, even if you can see in the camera, you probably can't see in the camera. He's just loving on her right now. And he's soaking wet because he's in the pond with your kids a minute ago.
That's okay.
So how do we meet? I actually probably met you before you were born.
Yeah.
So I met your dad. I worked with your dad at the mall when we were like young people back in the day. And then just kind of like known your dad and known kind of you in your life since you were like a little person. I can't believe you're like a full...
It's weird to think back because I'm picturing that pet store. It's in the old Walmart mall, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, before that, your dad and I worked in the old mall, which was like the Woodwards. It was back then. Now it's the Bay Mall.
Yes, you're right.
Yes, that's where I first met your dad. So I literally was like probably 15, 16 I met your dad.
Wow.
Yeah. I bought my rabbit from him, my first pet. My first pet ever was from your dad, actually.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, he started my whole animal journey. Do you know it's your fault?
Oh.
Or a blessing?
Dad, you're to blame.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you're blamed for all the animal obsession.
I actually am grateful my husband's blaming you, though.
Right?
No, that's so fun. So yeah, and you've grown into this like amazing entrepreneur, businesswoman. You have a teaching studio that you're now just setting up. You're like that kind of a jack of all trades. I mean, yes, you do nails. Yes, you teach nails. You're an amazing artist.
Thank you.
You build houses with your dad. Like, tell us all the things that you do.
Well, like I said, I don't sit still at all. But yeah, so Nail Academy, Nail Studio is kind of like what my main focus is.
Wild Rose?
Yes, Wild Rose Culture, which was named after my kiddos. So
nice.
It's kind of fun.
Yes.
Not after the flower, which is very confusing.
Yes, although you're in Alberta, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And and then because I don't sit still well, I do a lot of like weird side hustles. Like I flip houses with my dad. I don't do a lot of the like financial portion of it. He does all that because I'm not good with numbers and books, but I do all the designing, and then I do some like social media stuff on the side, and like kind of weird random things. Like every once in a while.
You're an artist. Like you're an artist brain. You're a right brainer, so that makes sense. You would design and do social media, and that's kind of your brain. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, don't sit still well, and I like to be creative, and I find I get excited about new things like often, and even if it's like something that I totally have never done before, like helping with an event, or like hey, like we need a bunch of social media graphics made. I'm like, I've never done this before, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, I might have missed my calling as a graphic designer.
Right. Well, you are just so design focused. Like man, your artistic abilities. I know you don't give yourself credit, and you're like, no, I'm not. But I know you. I know how artistic you are. And my daughter, since she was little, has like adored your art, and now she's like literally painting. You were her inspiration.
So good. Oh,
she's good. But that's because of you.
Well, I don't know. She's surpassed me because
I don't
she
know.
is so good.
She wouldn't agree probably, but I'm gonna get you guys painting together. Next podcast will be Danny Winter Painting Day.
Oh, we should do that.
That would be
actually would
so
really
great. That would be so great.
That'd be fun.
Okay,
Okay,
well, we'll
next
do
plan.
it. Next podcast. Tell us a bit about your business that you're opening. So it's transferring to this like multi-platform business. Like,
Yeah. So like right now it's just me. I'm the only teacher. I'm the only one that does nails. I don't really do nails often other than for like friends and family. But so this new studio is going to be more focused into the like a larger academy scale. So I'm actually bringing on another educator as well to work with me out of the studio. And there's also going to be girls in there doing nails. So I'm kind of tailoring it around so they have like a mentor as they're working through their business. Because I know how important that is in the nail and beauty industry. Like you're doing a new skill as an adult. It's tough and it's really hard to learn a new skill in an adult.
Yeah.
And I just see how many people struggle through the beauty industry, and it's hard. It's a lot of hard work, and I've just seen so many people struggle. And I was very fortunate in the way that I went through the beauty industry because my grandma taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And
she did my nails 100 years ago. She taught me to school, actually.
I remember that.
Yes.
Well, I don't remember that, but I remember you telling me
Yes.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just like wanted to help other nail techs grow. And so I thought this was kind of a cool opportunity into making it a business and going to bring in a little bit more retail.
Of course. I mean, it's not just that. You're going to add other stuff to it. So retail. And what else do we have going on in there? There will be some like other aesthetics that I don't do that will be in there as well. And then my creative studio is what I call the other side stuff that I just do randomly is going to be out of the back. So Winter and Danny Painting Studio in the back. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll have paint night, sip and paint, or whatever they call those.
Yeah.
There we go. Ideas coming.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was like, and I was going to have some yoga girls come in too and teach some classes.
Oh, good. Nikki.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I love
our
Nikki.
girl, Nikki. Yes.
She's the best.
Right? Love her. She got back from her trip in Bali.
Oh,
Can't wait to hear. She was just back. Yeah.
Oh, I have to talk to her about that because I really want to go.
Yes, I know. So I feel like, I think I'm curious about your entrepreneur brain and your busy brain, and you're always like, which is amazing. But as I do, I think about things. And I think I have very much that personality of like next thing and growing and evolving. And you also have this big heart. You worked victim services for a long time. Like I know you do, service industry, but you also, I think in your job anyways, probably do a lot of like side counseling.
Oh, I always say that. I'm like, I should have like a doctorate because I'm like, I essentially do, like we always say, we're like low-key counselors.
It's true. Hairdressers, but massage therapists, I'm sure they hear all the stories. And yeah. But I feel like you're actually quite skilled because I think you have a lot of experiences and you've done so much work on yourself and probably some training through victim services and things, and your schooling, of course, background in schooling you have.
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit, like what you've done some deep dives and you've done your own work, I know for sure, but what you know to bring to the table in that arena of like teaching others and guiding others, and not just entrepreneurship and business wise, which you do a lot of, but just in general, like with your family members and friends and people that you kind of guide and support and victims you work with. And how'd you get to be so good?
You always make my head real big when I come to you. I'm like, I don't know if I'm as cool as Alicia because you seem to be, but
she is.
There's so many different, like, I don't know, different things I guess that I've learned. I'm still growing, obviously.
Yeah,
like
me too.
We're all growing.
Yeah.
The day we die, probably.
Yes, I hope.
And right. And I'm still learning a lot about myself, and I just feel that like, talking to clients in like the nail industry side of things, I hear so many different stories and I hear so many people's perspectives and thoughts. And it's interesting because I feel like that helps me grow, but it also helps me help other people in a way, because I hear how things are perceived from so many different situations, right? So you could have 3 clients that all know each other and they're telling you the same story,
different perspectives,
but all different perspectives. And so it's made me super aware of what others perceive is maybe not what I intended them to perceive.
Man,
and
true.
Yeah.
True.
And so I'm very like cautious about, how I go about things, how I approach certain situations, and maybe makes me a little bit more cautious than I need to be.
Yeah, it's like a lot of work.
Yeah. But
when you get to be my age, you kind of just like let her loose, and then you're like, sorry, not sorry, but
yeah. And to be like honest with you, like I feel like I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm just like, I've got to set some boundaries and do things so I don't get torn down too. But I do find that I'm very like very aware of like what might be going on, and I consider myself to be very empathetic. So I'm like, I can feel feelings. And so when someone's really anxious, I'm like, oh man, I'm really anxious. Or if I feel like that they're just having an off day of like, oh, this is setting me off right now. Like I feel like I feel what they're going through.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like it has helped me because I've been able to help other people maybe understand that, when they're telling me something and they're frustrated with it, I'm like, okay, well, let's like put ourselves in that person's shoes for a second.
Like what else could be true? What else could they be seeing or experiencing?
Yes.
What else could be true besides your one narrow point of view?
Yes, exactly. So I do feel like that has kind of like been like a huge learning thing for me in my like nail side of it. And then again with victim service, that's a whole different ballgame because we're dealing with some serious trauma in a good majority of who we deal with. So that is a little bit different. And in that aspect, it's really listening. Is like, I think we were talking about that earlier today. Actually, we underestimate how big of a deal it is for someone to just be listened to without giving advice, without really saying anything or doing anything. And sometimes it's just being there, listening to them, and maybe just being like, what do you need right now?
Hard sometimes, no?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a learned skill.
Yeah. Very much so.
To be a really good listener is a learned skill because we're generally not very good at it.
Yeah.
Because not for all bad reasons, we have advice, or if you do this thing, you'll feel better. If I can help you here, especially with our kids, like if you just do it this way, you're going to avoid falling off your bike or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. But like you said, that power of, and I wonder, so when you say that, like it triggers me to be like, I remember experiences of not being listened to, and not because, no blame to anybody else, but just my perspective was like not feeling seen or heard. So I have sensitivity to that too, of like how the power of just paying attention to someone, listening to what they're saying. So powerful. Game changer, right?
Really. It really, really is.
Yeah.
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 And I think also too, like going back to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not diminishing someone's feelings either. Like about, what is a big deal to one person may not be a big deal to the other. It's like, I could go walk out this door and drop my coffee and start bawling uncontrollably. And where you might walk out that door and drop your coffee and be like, oh, I dropped my coffee, I'll go get.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not necessarily the dropping of the coffee was the deal. It was the tipping point after like maybe multiple things going on. And I think it's okay to sorry, my words are escaping me. It is okay to be okay with those feelings, I guess, in a sense. It's okay to have feelings and to have emotions, and it's okay to be like, I'm just having a shitty day. Yeah. And, and for someone to not be like, oh, it could be worse. And you're like, really? Could it be? Because right now I'm pretty mad.
It's just a coffee or some kind of minimization. Exactly.
And it's like they don't realize, again, that's the perspective thing. They don't realize what brought the tears to the dropping of that coffee. Yeah.
And just to believe you, like if you're literally having a moment, it's not for me to say how I feel in your moment because I didn't have your day. Yes. So he's like, oh, I can see Denny's distressed. I actually believe her that she's distressed. Or even if you just say, I'm having a shit day. Yes. I'll just believe you. Yeah. Like, what does it hurt for me just to actually honor your feelings at your moment in time?
Exactly. And that is like one big thing that I learned with victim services. Yeah. That's a very minor example of what it, like of what we deal with there. Not example, but you know what I mean? But it really puts it into perspective a lot of the times, right? Because when you talk to people that have been through traumas like that and they're like, oh, like I dropped the coffee and cried, and it's like, that's okay. Yeah. Because you've been through a lot. Yeah. And that, that probably would have made me cry, you know, and that's totally fine. Yeah.
And have big enough space for you to be in that you can have all your feelings. And because I think, part of what I do obviously is, people have big feelings. It's like, I always think that they're like waves on an ocean. So let them like come in. Sometimes they're tsunamis, sometimes they're little ripples, but to make space for them, they're going to give you information, or sometimes they're just illogical, whatever, just what it is, right? They're built upon, they've been riding that current for a long time to get to that shoreline. Let them come in, tip you over for a second, let them go back out. Yeah. If we just make space for that, often they just go back out to sea without much intervention needed. Just, I hear you, I see you. Yeah. I'll sit beside you for a sec if you need, but if you need new coffee, like I'll just be with you in this space for a sec. Yeah. Powerful stuff.
It is very powerful. Yeah. And we underestimate it. Yeah. How powerful that can be.
Yeah. So what's the chance that you learned that like young?
Probably a pretty good chance.
My little therapist hat's like, that ain't new.
Yeah. I've like, as a kid, I was always like I'm very emotional now. Yeah. But as a kid, I was very emotional. I don't remember the story, but I remember something happening when I was a kid and I said something or did something and someone said like, oh, that hurt my feelings or someone. And I was like devastated, like to my very core. I remember going and hiding behind the bed and like bawling because I felt so bad that I like did something that like might have hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
And they were joking. But it like, I did not perceive it as a joke. And I was just like shocked. I hurt somebody. And so I feel like, again, I understand.
You're okay.
I understand. Yes, thank you, puppy.
Yeah.
I guess just understanding, like the different perceptions and just big feelings and big emotions are.
In that moment,
real.
did someone come in and like what happened in that moment?
And it was so long. I don't remember. I just remember like bits and pieces of the moment, but I do remember. I think it was my aunt actually, if I remember correctly. I could be misremembering that, but I think it was my aunt that came in and was like, they were just joking. It's okay. You didn't hurt me. I was like, just ugly crying, but yeah.
Right. But that's the key with, I think, emotions like that, or our experiences, is having a safe space to be able to like have them go all the way through.
Yes.
Not to like, because if aunt didn't come in and say it's okay, you might carry that now as like, I cause emotional harm, or I might cause, I might cause damage to somebody else. I mean, we never know what thing can sink in deep to our system and create, a wound later on, or create some kind of, defense or resistance later on in our life. So it's interesting to see that she came back in and was able to soothe that for you. Yeah. And then I wonder too, you're obviously a sensitive kid. Yeah. Right. Which is beautiful, but also painful. It's like kryptonite and
because it makes us people pleasers usually, because we don't like confrontation and we don't want to make other people upset, even if the confrontation is needed in a negative or positive way. Right. I like, confrontation. Even now, confrontation is really hard for me, and that's something that I am trying to work through in therapy, and something that I went to my therapist last time, and I was like, I'm not a very good communicator and I'm going to have to work on that. And she was like, okay. And she's like, tell me more. And I'm like, I avoid conflict like the plague. Yeah. And I was like good or bad, I don't like it. And she was like, okay, let's work on that.
Because it means what to you? The story you tell yourself when you're in conflict is what? What's the belief you carry about conflict?
Oh, that's a good question. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin. Like I'm deeply uncomfortable in conflict. And
so the story you carry, to see if this feels true, the story you carry about conflict is that it's negative or bad or scary or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives it raises the anxiety levels, which I'm sure it does for everybody in conflict. Right. But it's like, I carry my anxiety a lot in my chest, and it gets really heavy. And, and I do feel that during conflict, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can handle this right now. And I don't like to show, it's weird. Being an emotional person, I don't like to show emotion.
'Cause you're an island.
You were telling me about this today. You might have to explain it again to me. But
so the gist of it, so Dana and I discuss this all the time, because she's a wave and my husband's a wave. Actually, we're not really wavy really that much, but these are Stan Tatkin's terms. And so these are attachment systems. So it's kind of your family of origin. And so on the spectrum of like healthy attachment, right, there's, a line, think of it like a line. And so one side is what we would call wavy or an anxious attachment style. And then the other side is what we call like a avoidant or islandy attachment style. And in the middle is the anchor. And so none of them are perfect. They all have their stuff, right? And so the island attachment style, when you're a kid, it's kind of the kid that's like self-sufficient. I can do it myself. I don't really trust others to take care of my feelings. I don't really feel seen and heard that much. Because my own perspective, it could be whatever, but I just don't feel quite like you quite get me. So I lock and load, and I take care of my own stuff. I don't really tell you how I'm feeling. I kind of lock my feelings in, and I kind of please and make sure to avoid having to show or be seen. So I don't really do vulnerability as an island. Yeah, that's kind of you.
That's me.
Where the other side is like my friend Dana, my colleague. She's gonna kill me for saying this, but no, she won't. She'll be like all the time. She'll laugh.
Sorry, Dana.
Yeah, she'll laugh. Where she is an anxious attachment style, so she's more clingy kind of. And so when there's conflict, they want to resolve it and fix it and talk about their feelings and have a very much. They're very verbal that way. They're good communicators in some way, better than islands sometimes, because we lock and load, so we don't trust to communicate. They're better communicators sometimes, but they're more clingy and more anxious and want to resolve stuff and want to communicate. Where I'm like, shut her down. Yeah, I got this. Yeah. I'll just fix it. I want to just fix it. I don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm like, I just want to get rid of it. It'll be another day's problem. I don't want to do it today.
So conflict for us, for island attachment systems, is like highly dysregulating for our system because we don't have the outlet to do the stuff. I mean, I'm an island in recovery. I've done lots of work. So I'd say, I definitely swing back and forth between island and wave now because I'm more anchorish in my current relationships, but I've done the work. But I know my island parts. If I get triggered enough or I feel stuff, those cues are, even though I've done my work, my cues are still like lock and load. I can still feel it. It's actually work for me to be like, come to the table. have a hard conversation. Even though I know all the stuff, I know all the reasons why, it still doesn't make it easy because my blueprint says, don't go there, don't talk about it. Shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't trust. Yeah.
Yep.
So, right? So that's why conflict is so hard for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So your
sense.
therapist, it's your island self, and she can look up Stan's work and be like, okay, here's what we do with an island.
I'm definitely going to bring that up to her next time because
Yes.
it was just the last, I think it was the last time that I went that I brought it up. So
Yeah.
it'll be a good time to bring
It's
it up
fun.
again.
And then do the work with the parts, like I said. So the story that you tell yourself. So it usually comes back to like memories or experiences of like being shushed or being not even like in a bad way, but just like, you know, hiding behind the bed because I didn't want to tell. You know, a way would be like, what? Like I just right. They have an outburst about those feelings. You went and hid about those feelings. So I just learned my blueprint was hide my feelings to myself, put them away in the system. Don't tell anybody. I tell my dog. You know what I mean? Like that's my best friend is my dog or my cat or my bunny or whatever it is at the time. And so I tell them my feelings and that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't really trust the humans in my world. So
Yeah.
So, but it's working through those stories and unleashing those parts of yourself, like sitting in that distress and being like, hey, and finding your body. Like I'm very body focused. So I'd be like, okay. I find my throat actually lots more than my heart.
Yeah.
I find like my throat gets like, I get lumpy in my
I do
throat.
too. Actually, mine does too. Mine, like it kind of like goes here and here.
Yeah.
It's like where I carry a lot of it.
Yeah, like we had a staff meeting the other day and I had to bring up some hard stuff with our staff meeting. And I was like, I could feel I'm like,
Yep.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey. And I literally was like, ooh, my parts are getting like tingly right now. I got to just take a sec to like, be like, hey, it's okay. Because this is like my, 4-year-old or my 8-year-old or my 12-year-old part being like, don't talk.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm here now. This adult version of me is here now. I can do this. I know you're afraid. So I'm taking care of my islandy parts in real time right now, being like, it's okay.
I like that.
We can be in distress and still be okay.
To talk to myself like that more.
Yeah, right. It's like taking those parts of ourselves and just sending them some love, like sending them the Care Bear stare, send it to your neck or wherever it is. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that.
right, and feeling it in your body. It's a good way to like check in and be like, where do I feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see like where you feel like or where you carry, those anxieties and those like stressors in your body. I think it's different for everybody.
Everyone, yeah,
And it's amazing how real and like you can physically
literally
feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting talking. So like I work with my osteopath Vicky or, with my horses or acupuncture, for example, and they say that stuff like you carry memories, whatever they're stuck in your body somewhere. So they'll come in and they'll release come in, I'm having anxiety. They'll be like, oh, it's your liver, it's your, right. All this that they work on.
Yeah.
And they'll do with my horses. Like my horse Stan was having really bad thyroid problems and it looked like Cushing's disease in the horse world is what it looked like. And so his feet were inflamed. He was like foundering. His hair was falling out. His back was he was really in bad shape in October. So yeah, I know. Poor Stan.
I love
Took him to
Stan.
the vet. We did all the tests, did all the blood tests, did all the x-rays and stuff. And he was kind of like, this looks like Cushing's, but it isn't. Like everything came back not Cushing's. Like not that can't. We're seeing all the effects. Like he's not doing well. Take him to Vicky.
Yeah.
Which I did anyways. I'm like, yeah, okay. So Vicky was like, yeah, he's got his thyroid literally was like, and something else, he had a goiter or something. He was like about things, and she was like, I can feel it. And she just did her osteopathy stuff, and she was like, put your hand on his adrenal glands here, and we're going to release his adrenal fatigue, and we're going to, and she's like, he's got too much trauma in his body. And then I was like, man, I've had like 6 PTSD clients with him nonstop for the past like 6-7 weeks, really intense stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, he's feeling all their stuff. And so I retired him that day from anybody, did the work, and he's like 100% now.
Wow.
6 months later. And I should show you my phone. I have a picture of his feet. So my farrier was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with his feet, but he can't walk. So put these shoes on him. And so I went to this different farrier. She's from Germany and she's amazing. She gave him these, like we call them the Nike Jordans. Like they're like gel pad.
Oh, cool.
Horseshoes.
Yeah.
I can show them to you after. They're jelly. And so she's like, I know something's wrong. I'm going to put these gel pads on and just like kind of cushion his walk. And so he started walking better. And now 6 months later, as she's cutting, doing the hoof cleaning for them, you can see the blood coming out now. So it took 6 months for it to grow out of his hoof. Yeah. It's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But it speaks to like those things being stuck in our bodies. So I'm like, oh, I can feel it here. If we could just release it, because humans could be aware of it. Animals can too when not locked and loaded.
Yeah.
Like, if an animal is in distress, what do? They shake, they do all their stuff, right?
Yeah.
Fart and whatever. And if they're allowed to shake it off in real time, they don't carry trauma. Humans do. We'd like put it in our system somewhere. Oh, let me just take that trauma and put it right here in my arm. Or let's put it in my throat and then I'll just hold it there until, I start walking funny and ticking funny and, get an ulcer or cancer or whatever, right? So if we can do in real time and make space for that in real time, like, hey, dear heart, or hey, dear throat, or whatever's happening, and like in real time send it some like love, I don't get stuck there. Yeah. But ours is already stuck from, our childhood
ours is already there.
Yeah. So now we got to do some of that extra work to unstick it.
Yeah. Takes a lot of work.
It's work, yeah. Which is why you're a proponent of, what's your work? Tell me about your work. What work do you do?
Oh, yeah. Like, in relation to therapy or in relation to my job?
No, therapy. Like,
Therapy.
what do you think is like useful therapy or useful work to help learn about self and like learn to open these things up and learn things, like you said, boundaries earlier?
Yeah, boundaries have been a big thing in my life, I find, especially because like this, I have like addictions and mental health in my family. And it's really hard to set those boundaries because it's hard to see a family member go through something and you want to help and you want to do whatever you can. But at a certain point, there's only so much that you can do. And before it starts taking you down with it. So,
or enabling them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to set some like pretty hard, strict boundaries with some family. And it was really hard to do, especially with kids. When it came to the kids, it was a lot stricter because we even had to set some of these boundaries before. But then when the kids came, it was,
So you're able to be more powerful or empowered in your boundaries because your kids are, now you're protecting your kids from distress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? We'll put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to protect my kid.
Yeah.
I'm a bear syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can take it, but I won't let them take it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Which makes, again, no logical sense. But I get it.
Yeah.
Get it. Been there, done that for sure.
Yeah. So boundaries have been a big one.
Yeah. So what would you describe boundaries are now? If you just say how would you describe boundaries?
I guess like putting like rules in, I guess for lack of a better explanation, rules into place to protect your well-being and your mental health. Because I did find that like there was a while there where it was just like you can't, like, I just noticed I was like, this is going to drive me crazy. And
Like they're trying to fix and trying to help, like that kind of stuff.
And it was coming in, how do I explain that? The way it was like going forward is that I felt like I was so angry about it. So when I was even trying to help, I was like angry helping. I don't know if that's like.
Well, do you think do you think, so there's frustration and like, I'm trying to help you, you're not getting better. There's that piece, but there's also grief in there. Like you're supposed to be this person in my life and you're not supposed to be this person in my life. And so I wonder if anger is a mixture of like grief and frustration and just sadness. I'm watching you literally die. Like so much anger is an interesting, complex experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably exactly it. The anger probably did have to do a lot with grief because in the same sense, even though like someone didn't necessarily lose their life, like you are seeing the loss of who they were or their ability to lead a normal life or the loss of, the life that they had. And it's just,
so many layers in there.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably exactly where it came from is a lot of grief. But yeah, so I felt like I was getting very like angry and I was getting very, so what's the word I'm looking for? Very,
I'm guessing burnt out too, like an exhausted maybe,
burnt
right?
out, exhausted. And so just like fed up. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. I was just like fed up with it. And so when I was trying to help, it was probably not helpful because I'm like, I've tried so hard to do this and so many times. And it's like, I'm just talking to like a brick wall because you're not listening.
And I know it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Like you've walked in in this pathway now to be able to say out loud, you can't help someone unless they want to be helped. Really, it's like taking my horse to the water trough, like make them drink. They're like, they're not going to drink unless they really want to drink. And even though I did mandated treatment for a long time. I worked at jails and treatment centers and things like that. And one out of every 100 maybe would buy in a little bit. But it's such a painful thing when you're like, there's just this thing. If you would just over here and get help and get better, and so painful for some
reasons. And you can get them like, so close, so many times, and then it just like takes 10 steps back.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating to watch, and it's hard to watch too, and it's sad, and especially when it's like like a family member, a friend, someone that you cared very deeply about. It's you again like a grief thing. Like you've now become the caregiver to the caregiver. And it's like, hold on, wait a second, this is backwards, right?
Yeah.
So and I guess like losing a sense of like normalcy as well because. Not everyone's family deals with that, even though very many people.
Runs by friends and
lots of people that I talk to deal with stuff like that. But it doesn't look like the social norm when you look at,
But the norm, whatever. I don't know what normal is.
I know. I was just like, I don't know. I was like,
normal is right, but mental health or addictions, runs in. I think most of them is to some degree, someplace, but no one, it's kind of like, it's right. Hide behind the bed, keep those in the closet, those things.
Yes.
Where if people just would talk about it maybe like this and be more open, people would have more permission to then have boundaries, and find help or, there's so many like, resources and options and help, but just be like, you're not alone. Like, I know there's so many treatment centers out there and there's so much good information out there, but still it carries that stigma, right? Of
Always.
and that carries I think the pain of with addictions, for example, and some mental health things for sure too. But when you're in it with someone you're trying to help, you're like, just pick me, just pick pick your family or pick this thing, and they don't, and it feels personal.
Yeah.
And I know it's not. Like I know professionally, it's not. It's, their pain is so big, or their right. That's what they're numbing usually.
Yeah.
Right. That they can't even see past. That their perception is so muddy. Their glasses are so foggy that they're wearing that this is all they can see is they're numbing their pain to get out of their pain. Yeah. But you're on the other side of that, not even being seen.
Yeah.
Which reinforces that not being seen thing again.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
So boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries are just really, I love you, but I love me more. I have to love me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you don't, especially when kids are involved.
Yep.
If you don't set those boundaries and you don't love yourself more than that, then you don't have anything to give to your kids. It's like Leanna's fill your cup for the whole thing, right? It's like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know all these things that seem cliche, but are just so dang true.
So true.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So, and that was a big one. And it took us a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And my husband was
it's
super helpful in that situation. He was like, man, I don't know how he did it. Like have the patience to deal with that. Cause like, I swear we're not crazy, but you're in for it because this is a lot. And he came to me to a lot of the things that I had to go and deal with. And he was a trooper. And
he's a trooper. He's just a
the support of like, he always said like, whatever you need or whatever you need to do, we will do it. And I was like, that was a really helpful support for me.
Yeah.
And my dad also was like, he's always like the check-in, like, everything okay? What can we do? Like he was, I do have some like really big support systems in my family, which is like extremely helpful.
Yeah. Huge.
Through.
Like we were saying with the anxiety with your aunt, you have this kid that's hiding behind the bed because she's offended somebody. She's got her feelings. She's scared. And then someone comes in and, soothes you in that way. Having those resources, lifelong, man, we are social creatures. Like it's nice to have, it's not just nice. It's like a requirement of, like Nabu when what's he doing? He wants to lick your leg when he gets anxious. He wants to lay in your feet right now because he wants to be with you. Like just having like, your herd around you that you can go to, whether it be animals or people, but yeah. So that's a big part of your resiliency probably was your people around you.
Yeah. I really believe that. I really do. Yeah. My dad tried like really hard to make sure that I had like good routine in life and had everything that I needed. And he read all the books, he did all the things and all the research. And I know he was such a good dad. And, he tried really, really hard. He made me go to therapy when I was younger, and I don't regret that.
Did you hate it, or were you okay with it?
No, I loved it. He sent me to an art therapist.
Oh, so smart.
Best thing ever. I actually like the stuff that she did with, I don't remember exactly everything, but I just remember always being excited because it was like a new art project in a way every time, but it was like really, and then we'd come back and like, even like through our sessions, I'd be like drawing and painting and like whatever she had in her office. It was so fun.
I love that.
And so I did really enjoy it. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health and going to therapy. And I'm like, even if you think that you don't have anything going on, that you're like, I don't need to see a therapist, I'm fine. I think everyone should still go because I guarantee you'll find something. Sometimes I even go to my therapist and she's like, what do you want to talk about today? I'm like, I don't know. I feel like things are pretty good right now. I feel
Let me check with my throat. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm like, no, we're good. And then like 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Or like whatever. Yeah. And then it always ends up. And then after the end of the session, I'm like, oh, wow, I was not expecting that today.
Right? I do that lots in my office too, actually. It's funny. Like, whoa, that went where I'm like, where do you think we're going to go today? I don't know. I come in with like open blank slate. But even I was with doing a podcast the other day at Monroe, and this Kurt guy, he's one of the videographers. He's just a videographer, so not a therapist, but I thought he said something really brilliant. He said, maybe therapy is just like your insurance for life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. He's like what you're saying, just go, even if things seem good, having some tools in your toolbox. So when things go sideways, you have tools. Yeah. I'm like, oh, wow, that was really insightful. Well done, Theo
That's
guy.
great. I love that.
I know.
I'm going to use that now too when I explain to you, because I tell all my clients, I'm like, I know I'm not a therapist, but you should go to therapy.
But you kind of are.
Yeah, and I've done that. Like I've had a client that her and her family have gone through some like pretty like traumatic stuff, and I just mentioned therapy, and then they started looking into it.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, I wouldn't have really thought about that unless you mentioned it.
Yeah,
because I feel like people just forget about it. Sometimes, which is weird because I'm like, I don't know, just everyone's different, I guess.
Well, you were young and you're introduced that without any stigma to it young. So that's
Yes.
amazing that your dad did that. And I also love that you did art therapy. Like I'm not super traditional therapist either. So
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time. So I'm, let's get outside. Let's get your feet wet. Let's go in the pond. Let's go
Yeah.
play with the horses. Let's have the dogs or the chickens or,
Yep.
right. Let's paint or I think there's so many ways to do therapy, and moving your body, it for me is a really important part of integrating what's happening in real time. And so
I think it
art's
gives
amazing.
people an opportunity too, because I know like some people are uncomfortable in like sitting across from someone's setting, right? Especially like, I don't know, everyone's different, right?
Yeah, some people love it, but for me, I'd be antsy.
Yeah. And like now I don't mind it. I go and get like, that's like my treat day. So I go and get my Starbucks every morning, and I get decaf because I found out like caffeine affects some of my medication.
Oh boy.
But I'm like, it's still just like the good coffee. I just love it. And so I get my coffee, I sit there and like put like something really comfy on. And it's just like, it's a time for me to like sit and actually like relax and just sit.
Nice.
Which I don't do very well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's really good for me. But as a kid, I don't think that I would have been effective in that scenario. So being able to use my brain in a creative way and do things while we were talking was super helpful for me.
Yeah.
And I know like I have someone that I'm just thinking of the top of my head. And I'm like, yeah, no, they wouldn't do well in like a one-on-one. They would have to be moving. They'd have to be with horses. They would have to do stuff. And even like the person that I know that struggles with like mental health and addiction, horses were a huge, huge thing for them.
Yeah.
And it really like, yeah.
Horses are magic, but I'm totally biased.
They really are.
In my biased world, they're very magical.
Well, and I just think there's something to animals, right? Like I'm just sitting here looking at the dogs. And I'm like, I love dogs.
They're
I
honest.
love animals.
They're honest. I mean, dogs are kind of very forgiving. They'll wag their tail and be pretty happy, but horses are pretty, they're prey. And so they're really tuned into energy in real time. And so if you're struggling, they're going to feel it in their body too. And so, man, when you're working with a horse to help regulate them to regulate you, it's magical. Yeah. When you see them settle and when they actually, give because they want to or follow you because they want to, and that connection happens, it's like something happens to our soul. It's just, that's it.
I love that.
Yeah, it's magic, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good introduction to people that, therapy doesn't have to be sitting in an office. It can be. That might be your thing. That'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
Right? And I think to find the right person has to be relationship.
100%.
Right.
That's like the biggest thing. I was
Huge.
in a podcast earlier this week, and we talked about that because she was like, well, what are your suggestions for people? And I was like, honestly, it's just not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to click with the person.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I didn't know you so well, I'd want you to be my therapist,
right?
but I feel like that's crossing a boundary. But
we can just chat.
Right. But I really do believe that it's just people give up on it very fast because they don't, they're like, oh, it didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, you might not just have been a good fit for that person, or their type of therapy might not have been a good fit. Right. Like you said, art worked really well for me, but it might not have worked for someone else.
Yeah,
and that's
I
okay.
hate that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just shop till you find the right person. And I mean, now we have online, so you can read bios and read kind of people, what they do, and you can kind of maybe get a sense of who they are from Instagram or their posts, whatever, and get a sense. But I find that thing.
Yeah.
So not just insurance for like when, because life's going to throw curveballs, as we know, our way. So having that skill set and having tools and having resources then to deal with curveballs. But in your case, going young and having resources all the way through that now you bring to the table that affect your life. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that I had a lot of help to get to like where I am today. Like you always wonder, right? If they didn't do that, what would have life turned out like? Or if this person wasn't there for me, what would have life turned out? So I was very lucky because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have like mental health and addictions in their family that don't have good support systems. And don't have, a therapist
attorneys.
So I was very lucky that way.
Do you have any favorite things that you think were like kind of when you say help or the resources, anything that you're kind of favorite resources that helped you in your journey? Or it's on your journey still?
Yeah. Like I said, my dad, he's just a good resource because he always, he was just always a good supporter and like, he was just kind of always there. And I just like know that no matter what, like he would always be there. He would like drop anything and help me when I need to. And I think it's just good to have that person, you know? And I did, with like in regards to my therapy, I did EMDR therapy and that helped me that helped me so much. I didn't know anything about it. The therapist brought it up to me. She's like, do you want to try it? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now, but sure. And it really helped me like get through a lot of like my like really like anxious times in life because I've always been an anxious person, but I do feel like it's given me the tools to manage it. a little bit better. And even just like having like some, like little tools throughout the day, regardless if it's EMDR, like that person, she had given me this like nylon kind of brush to like brush on my arms. Like sometimes when I was, and it's just like, man, does it work? And I actually use it for my daughter now when she's having like a meltdown.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you need the brush? And she loves it, but she does want me to do the brush.
Yes.
She's like, you do the brush. And she just sits there and it's amazing. Like, it's like, boom. It's good. But
it's so tactile stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of fidgets, but that's funny. My daughter, that's her favorite thing. If I tickle my arm, it's like, she could be having a test, anxiety, or whatever, and I took her arm or her back, she's like, she's instant like puddle.
Yeah. So it's those little things, if you just kind of forget how useful they are in like those moments. And I'm trying to think of like another tool right now. I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but just those kind of like little things.
Yeah.
And like even when I teach classes. So I think, again, going back kind of roundabout to where we were before about like how you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. It's the same thing with teaching. Like, I can give you all the tools and everything that you need to, but you at the end of the day have to do the work.
Yeah.
I cannot do the work for you. And it's the same thing with therapy. It's the same thing of like growing and going through life. Like, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't use them, you're not going to get very far. And so I do find that helps me a lot with teaching too, because I'm understanding it in like two different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm very conscious about mental health in my teaching and my business as well. So like mental health is something that like I touch on all the time. And when I see students get overwhelmed and burnt out, I try to do what I can to help that. Or when they need to take the time, like it's everyone's got something right going on. And I do try
that. You're a compassionate boss, compassionate leader.
I try to be. Yeah, I try. Like I said, it's a balance, right? Because you need to be strict enough that you're like helping them go forward, but you need to be understanding enough to understand when they need to stop, or when they need a break, or when they need help, or anything like that. So,
and to know that difference.
Yeah.
To be mindful to know that difference.
Yeah, exactly. So again, by having all the tools and everything, it helps make everything go a lot easier. So
I'm just imagining, my daughter's got amazing teachers, so I'm super grateful for her school system. But if every kid could have that in a classroom, which I know they can, like teachers have I would never want to be a teacher ever, but especially now they have so many things going on and they can't see it. Yeah, it's just a harsh place, but harsh for the students then too. Like those kids that are struggling for 1,000 reasons, or struggling for 1,000 reasons, but to be able to pause and be like, I'm not going to do your test today. I'm not going to compare you to this. I was reading an article how I think it was Germany and Switzerland, Norway, and I think Japan. I could get these wrong, but I think those were the terms. Like, and they don't do any comparisons and any assessments until the kids are like grade 7. So grade 1 to 6, they're outdoors. They're kind of seeing where their skill sets are. They're not. There's no assessments, so they're not being compared to each other, which is going to grow their confidence early on in life. Because how many kids have that anxiety of like, I'm comparing myself to what I got last time, or what this person's going to get this test, or whatever, or what my teacher's going to think of me if I don't get a good enough mark, or like I know my kids struggles with lots of test anxiety, and she's a comparison kid, right? Yeah,
I have the same thing. I was like that in school too. I hated all of that.
All of that.
Yeah, not good for me either.
No, it's so hard on the system, and I get it. How else are they going to push them through grades and whatever? I get it, but it's just, man, it's a broken system for so many reasons like that. And to be able to offer space, like in your teaching and your lessons, where you're like, you got to get through it, but how else can we get you through it?
Yeah.
Do you need to take a break? Do you need what? Do you need to do some, some touch with the nylon brush? Like you can do this.
Yeah.
And so, but we can do it in your space and in your time, which Winter's School offers now, and they're just amazing there. So I have nothing but accolades for them.
I was teaching a class earlier last week, and I put pipe cleaners in front of everyone, and everyone walked in and was like, what is that? Why do we have pipe? Are we doing crafts?
Yeah.
And I was like, if you guys are looking at me wondering why I put pipe cleaners in front of you, I was like, it's just because I did it at an RCMP conference one time, and I just loved it. And it's just for you to play with. Like, I was like, you can listen to me talk, play with your hands, build something, leave them, I don't care. Or just touch them, feel them. And it honestly, like, so many people were like, oh, that's so helpful. And they were like, that's really cool. And some people just like to touch. Like, they're just like, I just want to feel the softness of the pipe cleaner. And other people are like building things.
Yes.
And it's just so cool to see what everyone does with them, but how much more I find people pay attention.
Yeah. When they give them permission to do it their own way. Like, are you tactile? Do you need to touch stuff? Do you need to fidget in your chair? Do you need to like have an earbud and listen to some music that soothes you while you're like, everyone learns a different way. I'm visual. I need to see stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd be the one building something for sure. I need
Yeah.
to see it and be like, okay, I do the nail this way or whatever you're teaching. I need to,
Yeah.
but to give permission to be their authentic selves.
Yeah.
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 Which I think speaks to your journey of you learning about you and having the space and the grace, right? You talk about anxiety, and anxiety I think is part of you, but it sounds more symptomatic to like you being a sensitive kid. Just being, and not in a bad way, just being an aware kid.
Yeah.
And when you grow up in an environment that's, got stuff, I mean, divorce, you went through some stuff as a kid. So there's things that make you more sensitive, more just aware, right? So you feel things deeper. You're an empath, so you feel things. So you're going to have anxiety because you're flooded with information.
Yeah.
Your amygdala is like, whoa, too much at one time. So yeah, is it anxiety or is it sensitivity or is it a combination of the both things? But making that space, aware for yourself because of your own journey.
Yeah.
Of knowing this is kind of how I am and I know what works for me and taking information and like permission to be your authentic selves, whatever you need to do for you. Yeah.
That's my word of the year.
Authenticity.
Yeah. And it was like, it's funny. It keeps just that you just said it. I was like, it keeps popping up literally with every conversation I have. Somehow it just pops up and I'm like, that's the word this year for me. Yeah.
Well, isn't it true though, as you like peel these layers of self, and I think, Shrek said it well.
Yeah.
Right?
People are like onions.
Right? As he's like, that'll do, donkey, whatever, right?
I love Shrek.
In the words of the master Shrek therapist or Yogi Shrek. But right, as you peel back those layers, like that's what we do in life. So, or Maya Angelou talks about, the garden, like we're like a gardener, we're an ecosystem. And so people plant, as we're kids, people plant in our garden for us. We don't ask them to. And that's just part of life. So culture and school systems and peers and parents and grandparents, whatever, are putting stuff in our garden, which is like the layers of the onion, right? And as we're adulting now, we get to go, oh man, that's empowering, hard boundaries, right? I get to peel that, that's painful, but I get to peel that layer off. And the closer I get to center, that authentic self was already there. It exists, right? The authenticity that is you already exists. And so you get to kind of go through your garden or your onion analogy and keep the ones that are serving you and pull out the ones that aren't serving you anymore. Yeah. Right. And then I think as we do that more as human beings, we allow then others around us to do the same thing. Permission to weed your garden with me. Totally. And you can weed different than I weed it. Like it's your garden, right? Make it your best version of you. And then you get to bring in new things if you want to.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like you said, we're always growing and like, even where I'm at life, I feel like in the last 5 years is where I've done like probably the most growth.
Nice.
And really
most peeling?
Yes, the most peeling, most onion peeling with some tears because of this.
Onions make you cry.
Yeah, onions make you cry.
Oh yeah, we're fine now, boo. Don't come over here.
But I do find that, it's been the last 5 years has probably been the most for growth and really truly like finding out like who I am, like behind all of those layers.
Yeah.
And peeling back these layers, being okay with saying no and being okay with like, you know what, this probably is going to sound real bitchy, but I don't even care anymore. Yeah. Like,
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry, but I need to do this for me. Yeah. And like, I'll explain why to an extent if I need to, but it's again, that boundary of like, you got to do things for yourself. And that's really hard for people like me, because I'm so concerned about what other people are thinking or what they're feeling, or like, did this upset that person? But again, you can do things gracefully, but still setting that boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what do you say to that part of that pleaser part that's just like, don't weed the garden, don't peel those layers, like do what you're told, put your head down and don't piss anybody off, don't hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah.
What do you do with that part? When
it's hard. And sometimes that part still takes over. Like I said, still learning, still growing. But for the most part, I do just remind myself that it just has to happen. It's just that's a hard boundary. And there are some boundaries that are soft and some that are hard. And
some are more flexible. Depends on the situation.
Sometimes I have to go and use the brush. But
let me think for a second.
But yeah, sometimes there are those moments where like I do have to like it does give me anxiety to do that, and I do have to go and take care of that, and where that EMDR really does help me.
Nice.
But
so grounding, EMDR is basically it's grounding, safe space.
Yes,
integrating
safe space, the safe container.
Yeah.
And usually I like open that container when I'm in therapy.
Yeah.
But usually just saying that like, this is a hard boundary. You're doing this for a reason. You're doing this because you need this in order to protect yourself, your mental health, burnout, whatever the case may be in the situation. Just looking at it. He's joking.
So you're worth it. You're doing that self-talk of like that part's like, oh, are you sure? And you're like, it's okay. we're doing this for us.
Yes.
Like I got you. So I talk in like third person to my parts, which is maybe weird, but that's what
Yeah.
I do. Right. But doing that self-talk of like, I'm doing this for this reason. I'm just reaffirming the reasons. And I'm like, and I think for me, I don't know if you do this, when I'm talking my parts, I'm checking in. And if it feels like air, like I feel like, I feel better. Like I've always checking my body, or if it feels like that, I'm doing the right thing. If it's getting tighter, that's my cue of like, something's not right.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for that, like,
Yeah.
that like,
That lighter feeling.
yeah, the lighter feeling, that authentic feeling.
Yeah.
Which I would just call soul or energy, like of like, it's when truth lands, you know, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Even though it's really hard. Doesn't make the decision any, or the action any easier sometimes.
Yeah.
But truth lands, you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I can do
And
that.
I think that you said just, it doesn't make the action any easier. And I think that's the hardest part, is because I think you're like, why is this getting easier over time? It's like, well, a lot of this isn't going to get easier. It's just, it'll get easier for you to deal with it.
Yeah.
As you go through it.
Well, because we're not changing situations.
Exactly.
Which is painful.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? So the situation still might suck, whatever that situation is. But right, as you create your own boundaries, your self-love, your growth, your layers, right? You're peeling back those layers, gets more tender. Authenticity gets to shine louder. So that part's better and better.
Yeah.
That self-love is great. That's fill your cup up stuff, right? But the situation is still painful to be like, oh, that person's still in pain. I wish I could help them, or I wish I could make it different, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
That still might suck.
Yeah.
Right? Some things in life, that's how it is. But I think that's a great lesson of life, of like, you know, I don't need to fix all the suck.
Yeah.
I need to be able to be in presence with self and navigate the suck. Depends on what it is.
Yes.
And navigate from the most loving, authentic, compassionate space.
Yeah.
Not from rigid or anger or I'm exhausted or I'm like fed up.
Yeah.
Which sometimes we get to.
Yeah.
But if we can do it mindfully, authentically, it's from a loving place.
Yeah. I agree.
And then when your cup is full, we know this cliche from Leanne, of course, like when your cup is full, then of course you have more cup to spread with everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, my kids have a book. They use a bucket as the analogy.
My kids have that book too.
Yes, and I love that. And so we do
Fill your bucket?
we use that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did that fill your bucket or did that empty your bucket? And the kids are like, probably like, damn you, mom, using that book against us.
Right, it's true.
Like,
but I like the idea too, as you fill your bucket up, when something, like, because with little kids, you know, my bucket's empty, I'm like, or did just one marble come out of the bucket? Like we used to, I did it for my kids. I made these little heart things from the dollar store, these little foam heart things. That was our bucket fillers.
Yeah.
And so it felt like the bucket got tipped over. It was a good reality test to be like, well, like when you got bullied, this thing with bully. So but was it the whole bucket, or was it like 5 hearts came out? But there's still things in the bucket because you're still there.
Yeah.
There's still your cats in there. There's still your family. Like what? So then she could visualize what's still in the bucket left. It's not fully empty. So it always creates resource.
It's for stopping at the dollar store on the way home.
Right? Yeah. It was at Valentine's Day. I found those hearts, but you can use anything. Use cotton balls. I don't care, whatever. I think Brene Brown talks about marble jar. She uses a marble jar for her kids.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, but it's a good visual for kids of like, even for us as adults to be like, right, when you feel exhausted, you're just like, my jar feels empty. But actually, no, my body is tired, or my voice is tired from talking. My brain is tired, but my bucket's still pretty full.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I go, if it's getting kind of empty, or if it's not full, I gotta put some more stuff back in. What do I do?
Yeah.
I need to meditate.
Yeah.
I need to get quiet. I need to like pet my horses. I need to smell my horses. I need to, feed the ducks today, or whatever we did with your kids, right?
Yeah.
The bucket will be full today. They're feeding ducks.
Oh yeah. Their bucket's probably overflowing right now. They're so excited.
Yes.
He's the best duck ever.
Right? He's hilarious. My little duck. He's big duck.
Yeah. He's a big duck.
He's a little girlfriend. She's little. So
funny.
let's talk about kids for a second. We're talking about kids. How has your journey helped you with parenting? Because that's a whole nother, kids, I don't know for you, but your kids are little, my kids are big. But they're some of my greatest teachers.
Oh yeah.
I got cool kids.
Yeah. You do have cool kids.
I do have cool kids. They've got hard moments in time for sure, but they've taught me so much about my own journey, my own onion, my own, because they call me my shit because I've allowed them to, and I want them to, and right. And they're not filling my bucket up. It's not their job.
Yeah.
I'm there to kind of fill their up and, help them fill their own bucket. But I don't know. It's been a big part of my journey is my kids.
Oh, for sure. They definitely, even though my kids are little, they still call you on your shit.
Good.
At 3 and 5.
Right.
It's been, motherhood is definitely one of those things. It's the hardest thing that you'll ever do.
Yeah.
And no one tells you that before. But it's hard, and it definitely has, it's hard too, because during a good majority of their childhood was COVID, and where I was struggling immensely during that time. So it does, like, that part of it makes me a little sad, because I feel like it, like, kind of like we lost a little bit there, even though we were home all the time. It was just so stressful, and like such a heightened state of anxiety all the time for everybody.
So many unknowns, and
then
loss of family, loss of your community, and
yes, exactly. Loss of family, loss of community, loss of normalcy, routine, everything. So that I feel like my journey into parenthood has been a little bit different just because of that. But it's such a good learning tool, and because again, they really make you realize like who you are and who you want to be, because of that, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, like you'll do stuff for your kids, and you're like, I let that slide with me years ago, but with them, you're like, oh no, that's a hard boundary now.
Yeah.
So it makes you stronger, and it makes you less scared because you're like, I might not have like been okay with this conflict and with just you and me, but now it's like my kids are involved, and it's like now this conflict, I'm like, again, it's like you switch into that mama bear mode where you're like, and I'm not, that doesn't give me as much anxiety.
It's like the excuse of strength. I can be strong because I have a good excuse called my kids.
Yeah.
But do you feel like now that you have, so even, now that I've done those same boundaries, in my family or my, whatever, people in my life too, I wouldn't go back. I mean, my kids probably were my excuse, maybe gave me the push, gave me a little fire at my butt to do some stuff. But now I'm like, I own it. Like now I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
now that I feel that authenticity,
Yeah.
I don't think I go back to not being authentic.
I agree. And I don't think I would have gotten there without the kids.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have kids today, I don't know if I'd be where I am in like my growth journey for myself. And in like all the as hard as a job as it is, it's like it's worth every second of it. And it is such a cool journey.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see them grow into their own personalities. And I don't think I would be the same person, and I wouldn't be the strong person that I am today without my kids.
Yeah. And you're just starting. Here's your babies.
Yeah.
So little.
A long time to
Yeah.
go.
So with my first kid, you're my rookie, right? So as I'm thinking about stuff and as I'm peeling back my layers, I'm often with him being like, oh, I should have done that different. I wish I would have done that. And so I'll go in the house often and be like, Drew, give me a second. He's like, what, Mom? And he's like the most joyful, like easy kid, really. And I'm like, that time I did this thing and I sent you to daycare or did it. He's like, what? I'm like, I just want you to know, like, I probably should have done that differently. And I just want you to know, I'm thinking about that now. And he's like, what? I'm like, just want you to know I own it. Like, if you ever want to go in therapy someday and I'm just saying I own my shit. And I'm like, just telling you now, I apologize for those things. And he was like, okay, thanks, Mom. Like, but I just want him, I love being able to go back now and apologize for things that I never thought about till now and in real time. Or we'll have we had a little bloat the other day about something, probably nothing, what a pig, and I was getting worked up and I was to be able to pause and be like, hang on, I'm not doing what I want to do with you right this second. I'm busy, I'm stressed, whatever. Just give me a second to regroup because I'm not being the parent I want to be right now. And now that he's an adult, or he's 18, I mean, he's still a kid in my mind, but right? He can understand that language. Okay, Mom. Yeah. And I come back about 5 minutes in, I'm like, okay, let's finish our talk.
Yeah.
Like what a cool interaction I get to have to be like, I get to try to be the best parent I can be. And when I'm not being that, to pause in real time to be like, let me do this better.
Yeah.
And then my second kid, I've raised her stronger in some ways, right? Because I'm not rookie with her anymore. So I've learned stuff with him that I'm putting in with her. And then watching her be authentic, man, is scary for my parts.
Yeah.
Like my pleaser parts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, so she had this job recently. She had a job. She's got a job in the summertime that she loves, and she does good work with her. So she came home and had a job in town, and it wasn't quite matching, to the same level as what she expected. She wasn't getting very good pay. She wasn't getting tip out. She was working, and she's a hard worker. She prides herself on being and I know she's a hard worker. And so, unbeknownst to myself, she went to her boss and just, after 3 months of working there, and again, my parts even saying this are kind of like, I can't believe she did this. But my other parts are like, wow, she did this. And was like, hey, I feel like I'm the hardest worker here. And I deserve minimum wage. And I mean, she sort of said when I said that, and they were like, well, we can't pay that. She's like, okay, I'll find a new job.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I'll give you my 2 weeks. I'll work for 2 weeks.
I had more of that.
Right? And she came home and told me and Jay, we're both like, you did what? And then she's like, well, yeah, I told him I gave him my 2 weeks and I know what I deserve, and I'm the hardest worker there. Like I work harder than anybody else. I don't take lunch breaks. I don't smoke in the back like everybody else. Like I work the hardest person there, and so I think I deserve my minimum wage. And if you can't pay, I understand. Like it's not your guys' fault you can't pay me because maybe you're struggling or whatever, and it's fine. But I'll just find someplace else to work. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe you just did that. Like and she's like, and she was surprised. And she was kind of shocked at and she said, I thought you'd be proud of me. And I was like, I think I am. I just need to process for a second because my pleaser parts are really in shock. And I was like, let me just process because she was like, Mom, I'm like, just let me process. And I came back out and was like, okay, now that I've like processed and I'm like, my parts are like not freaking out because my pleaser parts were loud and like, I was like, wow, I wish I could have been you at 16.
Yeah.
Like, wow, if you can do that at 16, man, you're not going to have any of the stuff that I went through. You're not going to have to, shrink into boxes and try to I'm not in high school days. Like she's like got no room for crap in her life and she just does her own thing. And I was so trying to fit in boxes and fit in with the crowd and be that,
Yeah.
Right? I look at high school and go, oh, gross.
Oh, I know. It makes me cringe. I
Right?
did not like high school.
Yeah, because I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, because I didn't know who that guy was.
Yeah.
But instead of just like being authentically confused, being a teenager,
Yeah.
right? She'll send it to me, Mom, I'm an emotional teenager. I let me be emotional today. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Fair.
well done. Yeah, like
Yeah.
she'll just say it like it is. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yes, you are.
Yeah.
I'm having anxiety about this test. I need to just, and she tells her teachers, and they just like, okay, what do you need?
Yeah.
And then she asks, I'm like, dang. Yeah. So watching her live her truth and be her authentic self gives my parts anxiety.
Yeah. Oh,
Even
yeah. That
though
would give me anxiety
right?
as well. But I'm like
So cool.
jealous in the same sense because I'm like, I wish I had more of that, especially at her age.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we were like, I was like that. I was like trying so hard to fit in because I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew who I wanted to be. And that's like you were forcing yourself into this mold that was not it.
Ugh. And who do we want to be? We want to be what the world told us we should be.
Exactly.
We're should jail right back then.
Yeah.
So we're in should jail, and we're forcing ourselves and contorting ourselves into these versions of us that aren't us. And then we got to do the work as adults to peel off those layers of like, ugh, all those shoulds and I got to peel off.
Yeah.
Where she gets to like grow into her. And
Yeah.
being a teenager is hard. I mean,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
dealing with all the same teenager stress as everybody else. It's still hard years for sure. But
Yeah.
I feel like she's going to have less layers to peel off because she's doing it in real time now.
Yeah.
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 It's so fun to watch them and to.
Oh yeah,
Watch
I'm
your-
excited to. I don't. I wish time would slow down a little bit because it goes
Yeah.
too fast with the kids.
Oh, boy.
But see all the love. But yeah, it is neat to see their personalities grow, and like you said, to see them grow into their own person and strong and help them along the way. Like you said,
Yeah.
like my dad, just regardless, normalize therapy. So there's
Nice.
no stigma. And so when there is a problem, they feel comfortable coming to you with the problem or their therapist. There's someone to
Yeah.
go to with the problem.
Yeah.
So
They have resources for sure.
yeah,
Without that stigma. The dog's just loving it.
I know. My dog is going to be so mad when I go home.
Yes. And you're like, you cheated on me today.
Yeah. Who are you with? Oh, too fun.
Okay. So to wrap things up, what are some things, and this is like the $1 million question, but that you wish you knew, like your teenage self knew that you would do different? And we're raising kids, right? So what do we want our kids to do? Like, isn't that the goal of every generation? Like our parents, your dad, I'm sure, I know he's proud as heck of you for sure. And so our parents want us to be better versions, and then we want our kids to be better. Like I want every generation to grow and evolve to be the better versions. So
Yeah.
the earth gets better, communities get better, all that things get better for sure.
Yeah.
But what do you wish your younger self, if you could tell her, if you guys should go back and tell her something now, your younger self that was stuck in that trying to fit in mold, and you could go back as the adult you, and you could tell her something at any age, who would you want to go back and tell? What age of you?
I really, it's so cliche, but it's just, this stuff doesn't matter. Like a lot of the stuff that you think is such a big deal back then. And again, I know that is super cliche and that can be a very vague statement, but there's so many things, like you said, trying to fit into the mold or going to that party or whatever. And like I said, you try so hard to fit in and for what?
Yeah.
Like you're not doing any favors to yourself. Like travel when you're at the age of to travel and meet people. Don't be scared to be alone. I think
that's a
is
great
a big
one.
one. And that like you're stronger than you think you are. You just need to find out who you are. But yeah, like I think it's hard. Your brain's not developed, but yeah, those are like the biggest things. And I want my daughter and my son to be like that one day and be okay with who they are and not give a shit what anyone else thinks.
Right. So freeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't, like you said, like not being able, or for your daughter, with her job to be able to do that, like that would be so freeing for me.
Yeah.
And I hope my kids have that comfort and that self-acceptance of who they are.
Because knowing their worth,
Knowing their
their
worth.
worth. And there was no animosity. She wasn't like angry. She was just like, that's okay. Like if they can't afford it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I know I'm worth more than that because I just know that. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I barely know that now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like just also too, like I said, like being kind and being teachable is a big one. And, criticism is not always a bad thing. You don't have to be
feedback is important.
Feedback is important. And that, like I said, look at things from other perspectives, not just from your own. I think that's really hard for kids, and especially teenagers, because that our brain isn't developed, and we are very like,
It's hard for adults too.
it is hard for adults
Right?
too.
You know, one of the biggest things in my office that I see, because I work with lots of couples, is the idea of empathy, and which is great, ideally. But when they see things from, if the partner's saying something about what caused the hurt or why they're hurting, for example, other partners like trying so hard, but they're like, well, if I was in your shoes, I'd feel like this. I'm like, but it's not if you were in their shoes. That's not what I want you to do here. I want you to actually listen to what their experience is. Like just when your partner says this to you, just believe that's their truth. Why they make, right? So it's not, the idea of empathy kind of is confusing for people, I think. So I'm trying to teach, like, don't call it empathy. Call it just like believing them when they tell you their true feelings, like when they're in your office, or right. So that's hard for adults too, because we want to put ourselves in someone's shoes. Well, how I would feel in your shoes. It doesn't matter.
But it's different than it's not how you would feel in the shoes. It's how they
feel in their shoes, and they're telling you how they feel, or they're explaining to you how they feel. Pause and listen to them, like you do with the victim services. Is pause and listen to their experience and make space for them. You don't have to fix it. You can just make space and go. That sounds. I can hear you. I see you in this moment in time. Yeah. So many life lessons.
Right.
Yes.
Look at us go.
Right? Well, the world's grateful to have you, and your students are grateful to have you. And I can't wait to see your new shop and all this. And I know it's going to be Danny extraordinaire, because it's going to be teaching and art and, vendors, I'm sure. And you're probably going to, I know you're going to, bring in other
It's like
vendors.
everything in my brain exploded into one building and just.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. If that happens, I want your to explode one building. That's going to be amazing, because it's going to be creative and collaborative. And so how can people find you, and how can they follow you on your social media and on your new journey?
Yeah, social media is probably the best one right now. So like my personal one is Danneil.Broadbent, and then my business side is Wild Rose Culture. My Danneil Broadbent is still like my business one, but it's like my personal quote unquote business where like my creative stuff is. And then Wild Rose Culture is going to be more the nails, beauty.
So is that an Instagram page too, Wild Rose Culture?
Yes, but Wild spelled with an E, because it's a name, not a flower.
WILDE.
Yes.
So tell the quick story about what the Wild Rose is.
So when I was thinking of a name for my business, I've always wanted to name my business or have something to do with it with my kids. And but I was like, well, I didn't really want to name it like after their first names, and I was trying so hard to think of stuff, and I was like, they have some pretty cool middle names. And so my son's middle name is Wild, spelled with an E. And my daughter's middle name is Rose. So I was like, well, and then culture came from because I want to create a new culture in the beauty industry. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And you run a business women's group or something?
No, we just, I shouldn't say it. I don't, it's just like a business, like support group, I guess.
Okay. Which is, again, one of your multifaceted talents you have.
So it's just kind of like I don't run it technically or anything like that, but I just was part of the team that just got it rolling, I guess. So but I do love that, because I'm a big like community minded person. I love community, and I want to
and
bring others together.
Bring others and being a culture and being a community. And which speaks to who you are. Like, you grew up in a community. It was a community effort to raise you, which I think is beautiful for all kids. Like, I know with my kids, it's been a community raising, and I've been privileged to be in other kids, raising part of their life too. So I think it's a great way we are a community. Like, we're social beings. So you bring that back to the world. So thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.